Advanced Notice with your hosts, Parks and ynoT.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you guys there. Welcome back. It's another episode of Advanced Notice. It's been a while. It's been a little while longer than usual, but we're back. We're back, and today we actually have a lot to discuss. We have Advanced now coming to its close. All of the leagues now coming to their logical conclusion, and relegation now underway for ECL. So, joined by Parks, as per usual. Say hi. Say hello.
Hi, I'm alive, unlike my other host here. Somebody is very, very not feeling well, so this is going to be an interesting episode for sure.
Yeah, feeling a little bit under the weather, but we can start actually by kicking things off and talking about those advanced standings. We have those up ahead of us just to discuss what happened to the end of the season. We saw a lot of teams actually unexpectedly, I would say, personally, make a very deep run, Unjustified in particular.
Yeah, you talk about Unjustified. A big team as well that made a really deep run was a 15th seed in Philadelphia Liberty. They made it all the way to the upper finals. Unfortunately, they were not able to get over the hump with Unjustified. But a good run from them. I think within the first day, pretty much everybody's bracket had been ruined by Kinship as well, because maybe it was Philadelphia Liberty. I don't remember which team exactly broke my bank.
Kinship had beaten Limitless, and that was where mine.
Yeah, that was probably the one where it got everybody, because everybody expected Limitless to make a deep run, and they did get to the lower bracket round 5, which is just before the lower finals. They lost to Unjustified there, of course, but you know, at the end of the day, Mythic were the ones to come out triumphant. They won, I believe it was a 3-0. They had a map advantage, or maybe it was 3-1. I think it might have been 3-1. Either way, Mythic are into ECL next season, and of course there are teams currently battling out to find who else will join them up top. So we're still waiting on those results, but the advanced season is done. Of course, season 40 is done.
Yeah, I think it was a 3-0. Yeah, I think that they took the first 2 maps with that map advantage, excuse me, you were talking about. And also another surprise to me at the very least was Touchpoint not really having the greatest of runs either, going out in the first round to Levitate and then winning out up against Rectify in the lower bracket, meeting Limitless and losing out inevitably there as well, who Limitless also made a pretty deep run in the lower bracket to meet Unjustified in that semifinal, where, like you said, Unjustified faced up against Philadelphia Liberty, none other than them once again after beating them 2-0, I believe. Or no, actually, it was a 2-1 game, excuse me. Yeah, but they had won that one out to face Mythic in the finals, and that was a pretty good match, all things considered. The first game was a little bit of a blowout, but a great game nonetheless, played by Mythic. Really good all the way through. And on that second map, it was a 16-12 scoreline on Vertigo, which I actually thought was going to be a little bit more dominant for Mythic. But seeing as Unjustified made that run now in relegation, they've still been looking pretty good. So all in all, I think that the advanced season probably ended at the end, the very end, probably about how people would have expected it. The team is probably expecting to make the runs that they had, but Unjustified going that little bit farther. And I think that bodes really well for them moving forward.
Yeah, you know, Advance wasn't the only thing happening, of course. We finally got to see some of our compatriots over in EU play. And Tony has been chomping at the bit until he got sick to talk about this. He has got a lot he wants to get off his chest. So before his chest collapses, we'll get him in here. All right, you got the floor, sir. I'm listening. I'm all yours.
Yeah, I do have quite a lot to say. It might take a minute here, but I'm going to try and use all the breath I've got in me. So first, I want to talk about statistics. Before we talk about the actual results, I think it's important that we contextualize those results with how the individuals had played. So on the side of complexity, starting out with them, probably the team that I was expecting a little bit less than they put out from, but also hoping for a little more than they actually did. It was JT, not really playing the best Counter-Strike that we've seen from him at this level most recently, but he's obviously not the intended fragger in the first place. It's just somebody that you would hope would put up decent enough numbers for the team to continue to find success. Other than that, though, I think that Floppy really went above and beyond for the team as everybody else did their jobs as best as they could. Junior, a little bit lackluster on the AWP for my money. And moving forwards, I really hope that he can figure himself out, because once he does, I think that they're actually going to be a force to be reckoned with. With Grim not really being able to find his comfortability level either, seeing as he's kind of floating between players who aren't exactly comfortable yet in their own right. So looking forward, I'd like to see how they do. But in terms of their results, we saw Complexity lose out to Heroic. Na'Vi, both 0-2. They did, however, take Astralis and AGO to 3 maps. Probably should have won out in the series against AGO, in all honesty. Probably one of their most disappointing losses that they've faced most recently, but 2-0 losing out to Na'Vi and Heroic definitely is nothing to be too ashamed of, and a 2-1 win over their regional competitors in EG. That's probably going to be a lot of good for them moving forward, seeing as they can win out that head-to-head duel even still. And with EG, when we talk about them, I think that they're probably my biggest disappointment for this event in terms of North American teams. I think Party Astronauts probably weren't really expected to do a whole lot anyway, but seeing as Evil Geniuses went into this event looking to prove something, looking to show that their individuals at the very least have what it takes, all 5 of their players really underperformed all across the board this time around. They really didn't have a whole lot to say. Not anybody really doing anything worth mentioning. Not even really decent play. All you can say is that there was only one player in my money who didn't play bad, and it's automatic. Actually, I think individually, I think automatic had a lot of impact, although his stats might not show it. I think Breeze, he played pretty well, considering he was one of their lowest rated players most recently. Moving forwards, though, I think that they're really going to need to figure out some new formula, or else this roster, after this long, I think we're approaching like the 4-month mark now, if I'm not mistaken. They're probably going to need to do something about that sooner rather than later. So their results for this event will be a 0-2 to all EG, Na'Vi, Astralis, and a 0-2 to AGO is more devastating than it was for Complexity to lose 1 map to them, or to only win 1 map against them, excuse me, and a 1-2 loss against Cole. So all in all, probably, like I said, my biggest disappointment for that event, and I hope to see more from them soon enough. Complexity, a step in the right direction, but not quite there yet. Party Astronauts are the substitute, playing in the place of Viz, who I believe will be their 5th for the time being. PTR, not really, again, expecting them to do a whole lot in this one. Did what they could. They lose out to Big, Godsend, and Liquid, all 0-2, as well as Gambit, actually, or Players, as they're referred to as, and a 1-2 loss against Movistar Riders. So, I mean, they managed to pull out a map. Really wasn't anticipating them finding many very big results up against these rosters. Maybe a little bit more against Godsend I had expected, but all in all, like I said, not really the biggest end of the world thing for them. Liquid, they're actually a big hope that I have moving forwards into this event, seeing as they've now found themselves into playoffs. It's 2-0 against Heroic today, and throughout the playoffs, or regular season rather, we saw them 2-0 Big, 2-0 Godsend, 0-2 to Gambit, not that big of a deal. That's okay. 2-0 PA, and then a 1-2 loss against Movistar was a little questionable, but Movistar in their own right have been very impressive throughout the event so far. So basically, at the end of all of this, I would just like to say, Liquid, great work. Complexity, working on it, not quite there yet. Party Astronauts, expected results. Evil Geniuses, definitely need to see more from them. And in terms of statistics for Liquid, OC is looking phenomenal. I knew that was going to be the case, and I'm sure a lot of other players who know him have seen him. A lot of other commentators probably feel that way as well. Elige on form, Naf, not exactly at the peak that we've seen him at most recently, and Nitro and Shocks are getting it done where they have to. So that's where I stand on that, and this is how I feel about how we've seen in Europe from our North American players and teams so far.
I think the weirdest thing to come out of all of this is EG had the same map count as Party Astronauts. Like, that is a little bit shocking considering the caliber of players that are on this team. And there's been so many things said about this EG squad and how underperforming they have been for months at this point. I honestly, I think Junior, when he did his interview with, I believe it was Dust2, or it was HLTV,
Right.
And he said that we're the 50, it's between us and Liquid 50-50 right now as to who's the best in NA. He's not wrong by any means. They're the 2 best teams. And I honestly think that if Complexity start really hitting their stride, they really start figuring out their identity as a team. They've shown the flashes of brilliance, like when they went up against Astralis and when they had some close rounds against Heroic even. So the squad is there to be molded at this point. It's going to take, I think we need to give them time, just because it is a young squad coming forward who don't really have a lot of top playing experience. Like Junior and Grim are probably the most experienced in the top echelon of this, and Grim the most of them all.
Junior Floppy maybe definitely, well, obviously not as tenured as Grim, but Floppy definitely has a little bit of taste there.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it's still a young roster, so I think there's plenty of time for them. So, as for EG, the clock has been ticking for months now. They need results to start justifying the team. Else, there are going to be some really big issues in that team in the coming weeks. And you're having an old guard come in to try and help out. It's not going great. So that's kind of where that looks.
I feel like we've been saying the same talking points for EG ever since they formed, which is not something you like to hear. But like I said, I think the one thing that actually does bode well for maybe not maybe not the team, but for the individual, is that Automatic hasn't looked abhorrent. To be completely honest, I think that he was the player who I was expecting to have a little bit of like a learning curve, finding his way back into Counter-Strike, especially jumping into a team that's expected to play against like top 10, top 20 teams, right? But he's actually been probably my most impressive player throughout this roster. Breeze not really doing it for me. Cirque definitely not doing it for me. And Stewie, while he does have his impact as one of the more aggressive riflers, he's not really doing a whole lot to like change the game. So I mean, it does bode well, I guess, somewhat that you've got Automatic coming back from Valorant and already looking decent to okay.
Yeah, I think that's where we can leave the pro league side, because like that's all we can report on right now. They've
Liquid play NIP tomorrow. I think that's where we can leave it. That's something to look forward to.
That's something to leave it.
Or not tomorrow, but next.
When they do eventually play. Speaking of playoffs, with Liquid in the playoffs, we're gonna kind of go right back to the happenings in the NA scene here. Advanced playoffs was interesting. There was a lot of cases of DDosing in the playoffs, and it usually is par for the course that some matches get DDosed, but I think this was on a much larger scale than it usually is supposed to be, which is unfortunate. But I think this is a lesson to all the teams that, like, yeah, you need to be ready. You need to have you need to be ready for this to happen when it comes in around next time, and you need to be more careful about how you do your practicing, how your IP gets leaked, and definitely be ready to face off against that. You don't have to have a degree in cybersecurity to avoid this. There are easy ways to fix it, and I think coming forward, that's going to have to be how this works, just because it's so easy for people to get your IP when you're joining servers that aren't secure enough, that this can just become an issue, and you cannot plead with bettors or whoever's doing it to stop. They're gonna do it if it can change the outcome of the game in their favor.
Yeah, and that's just sad. It really is. It's sad for the people who are doing it, and it's sad for the people on the receiving end of it. Obviously, like, they don't ask for that. They're just there to play their own game, to have their own good time. Like, they didn't ask for anybody to bet on their matches. They didn't put that out there and say, hey guys, come on out. I want you to just watch me play only for the sake of your financial investment. Like, it really is just unfortunate to see how sometimes at the lower levels of Counter-Strike, it devolves from Counter-Strike into quite literally Russian roulette.
Yeah,
I mean, like, quite in the most literal sense, Russian roulette.
Aside from that, of course, the season is over, and because of the delay, we've actually had a little bit of a chance to go through, and we get to see the early roster shakeups happen.
Yeah.
Quite dramatic. We're gonna be nice and start off with the coaches coming through.
We could just say like maybe like a sentence about each. How's that? We'll just trade off.
I don't
maybe.
I don't really know. I don't know too much about many of these
say
players.
Who you know. Say who you know.
Well, we can start off with ynoT. He's a free agent looking around. That entire Arrows team has kind of fallen to the wayside. Newt, whoever changed that.
I didn't type it in.
I didn't type it.
I didn't type ynoT. I don't know who typed ynoT.
Newt, I'm so sorry. He doesn't deserve any of the shit I give him.
Coach ynoT. Change the name.
Yeah, he's looking for a team again. He's been looking for a team almost after every single season. So best of luck to him. Coaching is a hard thing to do. It is, and it just hasn't worked out for him yet in terms of that.
Right. He definitely got his team into a pretty good standing, at least to be competitive in the matches that they were competitive in. But I guess the results not showing towards the end, especially up against Unjustified, most recently losing out in relegation, losing out in their place in ECL into Advanced. Yeah, that's going to be a little bit of a stinky situation for him. And I don't know if you said this while you were saying that, but all of Eros actually disbanding with that.
Yeah. No, we'll get to them as well. You guys have a whole large players section here.
Yeah.
The other coach that is looking for a team currently right now, at least coming off of the end of the season, there could be coaches that have been waiting for a while.
Right.
Roundcube, I believe he coached Third Impact at one point or another. I don't know what team he's from. I just remember.
He was from Levitate. He was from Levitate. Yeah, and they had a pretty turbulent season in terms of the rosters, but they still managed to show a pretty decent showing towards the end of the season, having beaten out Touchpoint, like I had mentioned in the first bracket of the playoffs. So, I mean, definitely not bad, I would say. Like, I don't think that's a bad result from them. But moving again into the future, they're going to need to see a little bit more I guess, results moving into a new territory might just be better fit for him. So we'll see what he finds next, I guess.
Yeah, and is that all the coaches that we got left then, or?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
We can move right into the juice.
We've got the juice, the players, the ones that make the twitlongers, that make everything coming forward, that shows kind of where they're sitting. We're gonna start with the big name, J-Dubs.
The biggest of names,
the
man.
biggest of names. He was recently given our MVP from the season for his play, and after losing out in the early rounds, I don't think Big Chillin even made relegation.
I don't think they did. I think they lost out in the lower bracket in like the first or second round of that.
They lost to Unjustified Gaming in loser round 3, which meant they did not qualify. Yeah, they did not qualify as a result. Because it was UIU and Kinship that played for that last relegation spot. But so Big Chillin didn't make the relegation tournament, which meant there was not a lot left in that team, unfortunately. So J-Dubs has left the team. Like we said, he's a great player. He's known to be a great player. I believe he was just playing with ATK in the Blast Premier tournament to get the NA qualifier. So that's been a thing.
Yeah. He had a couple of decent games, but overall I think the team kind of struggled a little more than they probably should have.
Yeah. That's always one of the great things, I guess, about playoffs, is it's just a different beast in terms of how the matches go. It's best of 3s, first of all, versus the advanced regular season just being best of 1. So I don't know. It's definitely its own beast, and that has to be kind of put into. But yeah, J-Dubs is a good player as well. We have Flixie coming through. Touchpoint is starting to rebuild after 2 seasons of not getting close even to getting to Premier. I believe they went 0-2 this time around. They've usually struggled, I found. So it's a bit unfortunate from them.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, definitely a little unfortunate. I think that they were trying to find themselves like grouped together for a long enough time to where they would gel and mesh and find those results all together as a team. And they definitely didn't look bad in the regular season. That would be a lie if I said that they looked like they were not going to make it to like the top 4, because I thought that they were. I honestly thought they were going to make a pretty deep run. But like you said, unfortunately, that they will fall a little bit short. And a team who didn't really fall short, but still is making it quite the rebuild, is Limitless. Having made those relegation games, now have like 3 players who are on the way out. It's Sluggy, Mills, and Murph, and they will be retaining Atomic and Sezawana, and they'll be rebuilding that team. But Mills, the AWP in-game leader for that team for that season, not really showing the best of his ability, as he mentioned in his Twitter post. Definitely likes to think that he has a lot more to offer, a lot more to show, and I'd like to think so as well, because I've seen him win Advanced before. So I'd like to think that that's the case. In this case of Sluggy, experienced, talented, little bit of a mental downer on Twitter sometimes, but we'll have to hope that solves itself as he finds himself in maybe a little bit more comfortable of a situation next season on. And Mirth is a player who I think is nuts, and I don't know anything about him other than the fact that I watch him and I think that he's nuts. So that's all I really got on him.
Yeah, again, that whole rebuild, they made it to relegation. I believe they went 0-2, which is so unfortunate. I definitely saw that team making a deep run in playoffs. They did. They made it to the relegation battle, and unfortunately, they're just not able to get over the hump at the end, which does spell the end of their season. And these are all really good players. Like, I can see these guys going on to another team next season round that makes them get once again to the playoffs, pushing forward. Speaking of another player that probably would have thought he would have been on a playoff team coming forward, Irish, big fan in the LCA Twitch chat. his takes were very interesting, we'll say. Good player. I've heard such good things from him from other casters. Talking to him, he's been fine. I don't really have anything bad to say about any of these players that are free agents. It's just kind of the nature of the game that they felt they needed to change the pace and they needed to change the scenery. So here they are on our board.
We kind of just run through, honestly, at some point until the players that we can actually talk about in depth.
Yeah, well, we got Irish, we've got Gone, we've got Spec, we've got Coco. Stop me at any time if you know any of these guys. Jermaine, Hyena, Arcade's a good one that we can talk about, actually, because he had a bit of he went against the grain in a way that I liked. in terms of
Right.
his exit interview with Dust 2 when they asked him the reason he left. He just, he went off and he said, yeah, like this was not a good team situation in terms of the players. Some had some egos they needed to get over, some communication issues.
Spec is one of his teammates also who we have listed here, so that's
yeah,
interesting to
so
hear.
you can see that the team in control, they did all right. They made playoffs, right?
I believe so.
Yep.
Yeah.
They lost to UYU and Virio no, they lost to Limitless. They lost to Limitless.
Actually, funny enough, Arcade and Spec, the two players we have listed here, those are the ones who listed, citing that actually Andrew has untenable attitude problem on the team.
There it is. That was the one.
Yeah, so definitely interesting.
Yeah.
But running down still.
Yeah, Core, Bilinko, Fatality, and I believe it's Fatality and Sharky. I don't know any of these players.
Yeah,
I'll be honest.
they're just fraggers. They're definitely out there looking for hire, guns for hire. But I guess the more interesting ones that we were just talking about is Eros.
Yeah, so the whole roster has gone unnoticed. That is, sorry, I'm losing my track here. Freshie, JT Mythic, Omniscient, Razian, and Shutout. The entire team have put out there.
Man, why can nobody pronounce Omniscient? Nobody can do it.
Omniscient.
Werewolf can't do it. You can't do it.
It's a nasal thing, I guess. I don't know.
It's an interesting word. It's
omniscient. Omniscient.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Omniscient.
Oh,
do you want me to make it more English? I can go
omniscient. No.
We can talk like my grandmother.
Well, yeah, I actually did cast that matchup that they had lost out right before their disbandment against Unjustified Gaming, where they had won out on map number 1, the map pick of Unjustified. Keep in mind, 16-7 on Inferno. Probably like a really massive victory that should set you up for like this series, right?
Yeah.
And then come map number 2, Unjustified run them over 16-13 on their map pick. I don't want to say run them over, definitely not a run over, but certainly on your map pick, regardless, you feel a little bit torn down maybe towards the end of that one after having won out so convincingly on the opponent's map pick. And then into map 3, a 14-1 CT half from Unjustified. 14-1 against a former ECL team. Probably not the greatest of looks, and no offense, not trash talking. I like the way that they play their CS, having watched them for those first 2 maps. Very, very poorly put together Vertigo. And I hate to say it, but they kind of just looked like they didn't really know how to counter what was going on very basically on the side of Unjustified. And Unjustified, in their own right, played a phenomenal game. I think 3 players ended up with above 80 ADR in that matchup. Cyrix just floating below. JS Feltner, the bottom fragger, which is never the case, I feel like. And Hitman had quite the showing in not only the end of the playoff season, but here in ECL relegation.
Unjustified is a really good team. I think we need to put it that. But yeah, killing a roster is very interesting.
It's a painful thing to do.
It's a painful thing to do. It's also kind of funny. It's like a medal you can add to your chest of like, yeah, where were you when we kill Eros?
Where were you when Eros was killed?
Yeah. But that's it in terms of the players that we've got right now. I expect when we come back, we'll be roughly around the start of the next season. So by then we'll see teams kind of being formed together. We can put together our top 16 maybe. We'll figure that out eventually.
Yeah, maybe we can have a little fun. Maybe we can have a little bit of fun. Maybe a Tony's team on the horizon, perhaps, all these free agents.
Top premier, top advanced team coming out of the free agents that you could have put together.
Or maybe like a make a roster change that makes a team better or something like that. we'll figure
just
it out.
Just like kick the shit out of somebody so that we can put in our own best player.
Yeah, for real. But that's actually almost going to do it for me here today. I'm unfortunately, as Parks mentioned earlier on, feeling a little bit under the weather. So I will take my leave for this portion of Advanced Notice. But once I am out, once I am off your screen, you'll have an interview with Gir. So I hope you're looking forward to that.
We've still got plenty left to go. We've got Gir. We've got a player that we want to mention in his player profile. I've got a final thing I want to talk about. And that's going to be the episode for this week. So yeah, definitely stay tuned. All right, so with Tony gone, joining me now is Gir. He used to play for Team Omega. They made it to the playoffs, of course, and then were quickly eliminated.
Yeah, immediately, first 2 games gone, 0-2. I forgot what the exact score is, but it's pretty
Yeah,
sad.
I can pull it up real quick if you give me a second. Yeah, so you went 0-2 against Philadelphia Liberty and 0-2 against Unjustified Gaming. Honestly, both those teams made very deep runs, so hats off to them. But like you guys did all right in those matches, I think. I didn't really watch too. Excuse me, I didn't watch too much of them, but I guess we can talk about the team a little bit more. You played with that core for a really long time. What was it like to have that stability of playing with that same group of people for so long? That's something that like NA has missed for so long with so many of these teams. We just ended up talking about free agents. What's it like being in a core group for so long?
Yeah, when it comes to NA, a lot of the teams just break down after like 1 or 2 seasons. But with Team Omega, I joined the roster back in season 34, I think, and that was the only remaining player from that team was Zebra, and then we brought in Luke K the next season, and then us three have just been playing for the past like 4 or 5 seasons, I think. Yeah, playing with that kind of roster or playing with that like stability, you just learn a lot together. You build an amazing chemistry, and you always your focus always is just focusing on protocols. A lot of teams in NA just like to focus on intuition and just doing like the right play, like offhand. But with a team like us, we just find it very important to come up with a lot of protocols for like every situation, and that's something I'm gonna miss heavily leaving that team. But yeah.
Yeah. Speaking, you guys making those plays, those protocols. What kind of a player are you? What kind of roles did you play in that team? Like, were you the entry? Were you an anchor of any sort? Like, what kind of did you cover while you were there?
I think I first joined as an entry or like second in, and then we transitioned me back into like a supportive third slash lurker role. And on CT side, it's pretty much been the same throughout. I've just been an anchor. I tried to transition into playing a more like rotator or like aggressive role, but they just thought I was like a really good anchor. So they just told me to keep anchoring. And even though I was a pretty good like rotator too, they just wanted me to like some players like didn't feel comfortable anchoring, so I was kind of like forced into those positions a little bit. But I was happy because we were winning, so it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. If you're winning, that's all that
Yeah,
matters.
that's the. Did you ever feel like you could have done better if you were playing kind of what you liked more, or was it just because you knew the team, you knew you could handle being an anchor that kind of came through as I'm going to do this for the team just because I know we can make it work versus I want to throw a fit and be the rotator. I want to be one of the guys that kind of gets in on the fight early.
Yeah, I was pretty calm about it. The only spot I really like wanted to keep was Cat and Mirage. I did not like playing A anchor. I could play like any other spot in Mirage. Like Mirage is my best map, and I mean since that's my best map, I can A anchor like pretty well. But I was uncomfortable in the beginning, but I just sucked it up, and I was like, at the end of the day, if we're winning, that's all that matters, you know. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. That sounds great. So, um I believe at the end of the season you put out a Twit longer. That might not have been you. There's been plenty of Twit longers in the last few weeks. You saying you were taking a break from competitive CS. Is that's just kind of burnout of the whole thing, or do you just need to take a step back, kind of find your love for the game again? What's kind of going on with that?
So my Twitlonger was it was kind of a weird Twitlonger. I initially started that I think towards the end of the season, like before playoffs and before I even thought about taking a break. I just wanted to express my gratitude for my teammates. Um, just I wanted to release it before playoffs, so like when we went into playoffs, we were like really like in a good mood, because I try to like extensively like write how much I love my teammates. I think that like that sort of camaraderie is not found in a lot of other advanced teams. I feel like there's a lot of egos, but I could be wrong. It's kind of like outside perspective. A lot of teams like break up after each season, so whether or not it's an ego or just like them trying to go their own way, that's really up for speculation.
Yeah.
But I I realized I wanted to take a break, or like I felt like I was a little burnt out towards the end of our first game in playoffs. I felt as if I'm constantly trying to compare myself to the old me, and I just felt as if I wasn't living up to expectations of me because regular season I had a pretty sizable amount of ADR, and stats aren't everything in a player. Don't get me wrong, but when you're like getting gratified like from your numbers and stats, it kind of builds something like inside of you. I don't want to say an ego because I kind of valued myself pretty lowly on the team, but I was more so like I guess I just gave myself a lot of performance anxiety coming into playoffs. I felt like I had to play really well in order for us to make it, but that's very egotistical. But despite that, I had a lot of like mental health issues. Like in the middle of the season,
Hmm.
not to like laugh about it or like make light of it, but my best friend who got me into CS:GO like 8 years ago, like 9 years ago,
Yeah.
um, he took his own life in the middle of the season, which is not easy. And I try to just like, I don't want to say like put it aside, but I was trying to just focus on CS and just like focus on my own game and not have it
Yeah.
like affect me. Like it's kind of I maybe I should have like taken like a week break or something, but I felt like I just needed to play.
Yeah. And so now you're taking that break. You're taking your time to sort. I don't want to say sort yourself out. You're taking your time more to find yourself again, I guess, after that whole season kind of ended, and now you're moving into a different kind of state after the end of the season.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess there's no really a timeline for you to come back then. That was going to be a question, like, when do you feel like you're going to come back? That's whenever you're ready to go again, I guess. Um, in terms of feeling like yourself, feeling like somebody who can pull their weight again on a team, who feels comfortable being with a new team. Because I'm guessing that's what's going to happen now with Team Omega. They're going to move on and find more players and what have you. So, no, definitely. I think I wish you the best of luck in terms of that.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, it is one of those things that it sucks that it happens, and you never wish that on anybody, even the people around you, when something like that happens. So, best of luck to you with all that, and uh, we've got a
Thank
few
you.
more things to get through for sure. If you want to be around for that. Um,
Yeah, for
we've
sure.
got we got a player profile. You actually would know this player because you played up against them. Somebody who is on a team that made a deep run this time around. It is Andrew Tender C from Philadelphia Liberty. He started playing in season 33. Over the regular season, he had 76.98 ADR and a 10.16 RWS over the regular season. I couldn't grab stats from the playoffs at the time just because they were still in a run. His best result came up against a team called Sinister. He went 21-12, 105 ADR in that match, 18.73 RWS. What was it like playing up against Philadelphia Liberty and Andrew, or Tender?
Philadelphia Liberty was an interesting matchup for us. Um, we predicted all of the right maps and all the right vetoes, and we just couldn't like get the ball going on either side or either map. Um, on Dust 2 it was especially hard for us. I think that was our map pick, if I'm not mistaken. But for Tender, when I'm in the server, I don't like think of like any other player on another team. I kind of just play my game, and it worked for me pretty well. But
Yeah.
the only play I remember from the enemy team was Just Too Easy, like Just Too Easy's 1v4 on Dust 2. That
Yeah.
was I rewatched it from his point of view, and I thought that was like incredibly like talented. Like it was just too easy for him, I guess.
Yeah, I think that was your matchup against Unjustified, I believe it was.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. Oh my god.
Don't worry, man. The days have blended the last few ones here. No
Yeah,
problem with that.
sorry.
Yeah, no, it's you know what? You remembered the play. You remembered him
I
absolutely
remember one
crushing you.
player. I remember one player from too much. Oh my god, I'm sorry.
No, all good. Yeah, Tender is a player to look out for next season, of course. I don't believe they're in relegation right now. The relegation. No, they didn't
I
make
think
it that. Did they make it that far? Yeah, they
I
did.
thought
So they would
yeah,
be in the relegation tourney. I don't know what's happening with that. I've barely been awake the last 2 days. I'll be honest. It's been it's been a lot of
all
school
good.
for sure. I guess the last thing that we can kind of touch on, and this one is actually gonna be interesting, more so towards the player side of it. We got things I think. So this is the section where I like to talk about something that kind of pops up into my head, something that just kind of it's something I like to reminisce about, to consider as I go forward here. And today, this time around, it is Stanislaus Quit Longer. It makes me believe that there will be some trickle down as pro careers start to wind down. Stanislaw, of course, playing for B-Hop Esports. They are in the relegation tournament right now, actually fighting for their tournament lives as to whether they'll get relegated from ECL into Advanced or not. A player that they is for sure off that roster at the end of the season will be Delta 9.
Yeah.
But for sure, hearing that a pro like him is fine or accepting of the fact that, yeah, you're going to need to start from near square one again in terms of the scene. If it's in Advanced, he's going to try and rebuild that roster, get them back into ECL. If it's an ECL, they got to find a new player to pick up, an advanced player. He said he was looking at. He's looking at anyone and everyone. He's kept his eye on the scene. So that kind of trickle down is really nice. Is that something that you guys consider when you're looking towards? I don't know if you've ever gotten offers from ECL teams, but whenever a team kind of comes looking and is like, hey, like, I'd be really interested in trying you out for our team and potentially making a push for playoffs or for ECL with you.
Yeah, just talk about like the him going down to like a lower, I guess, quote unquote, lower tier team.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. I think it takes a lot of like it takes a lot of I can't think of maturity to push past the pride and
Yeah.
just play with just your friends, try to find your confidence again, as he mentioned in the Twit Longer. I thought that was really cool of him, because NA is plagued by egos, and for him to especially like a big figure in the NA community, to just say like, hey, I'm putting my ego aside and playing with a bit of worse teammates to try to just find myself again and try to get back to where I was. And I think that's really cool, and I think that's very healthy for the scene. And if you notice, I also quote tweeted it, and did I quote tweet it? Yeah, I quote tweeted it, and I said I'd be down to come back for the right team. The right
Yeah.
team meaning like mainly salary,
Yeah.
because I money is kind of hard from where I am right now.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to take a step back for that, 2 reasons. I'm kind of taking a break, and then the third thing, I have not gotten an offer from an ECL team, unfortunately, but I did get an interesting offer that will satisfy one half of my needs, I guess, or like what I want.
Right.
So yeah,
But yeah, I like how you mentioned his maturity in terms of him knowing that maybe he's not in a good spot in terms of the pro league side. He needs to kind of find himself again. He needs to. I know players talk about this a lot. Like, they lose their passion for the game because they're just doing it day in, day out. So part of that might just be he needs his passion back for this game, and that's kind of where he's sitting at in terms of doing it all. So it's nice to see from him, and who knows, whoever picks up, they're definitely going to get a wealth of knowledge from him because he is so well traveled, and because he's been there, done that. Like, you think about E-League, the man took Optic to a win that long ago, and he did so much for other teams as well. It's a crazy thing to consider how well traveled he is versus now where he is. It's kind of like an Adren story, where Adren kind of, when he wasn't coaching Team Liquid, he was playing with Mythic, and he wasn't so much imparting his wisdom upon that team because it was made up of Lex and Anger and Flom, who are experienced veterans themselves. But it's still that understanding that they can go down a level or a few levels even and still have impact within the scene, which is really cool.
Yeah, for sure. It's very respectful.
So that's actually going to be it for this episode. Of course, we're going to wish Tony well as he gets better, hopefully, from his chest pains. And thank you very much, Gir, for coming on. It was a little bit of a wait to get you in here, but we eventually all figured it out. So any shout outs you got for anyone?
Yeah, thanks for having me, and sure, shout out to Atomic, shout out to my wonderful girlfriend Amber, who's gonna watch this whole thing, like always. And then shout out to Zebra and Luke and Talon for being super understanding and my decision to step down, and Mello, I guess.
Yeah, no, thank you to all those people. And again, thank you to LCA. Thank you to Monroe's Cookies for their amazing sponsorship. If you haven't had a chance to look, make sure you go and do the checkout code LCA05, 5% off your order. USA only available, which will eternally curse me because I live in Canada. Other than that, that is it. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good night.
Awesome.
Awesome.